Hey guys, tonight we are leaving behind solid ground entirely. We're drifting off to a city built on a lake, a metropolis of canals and floating gardens, where the sound of a lapping wave against a canoe is the sound of traffic, and the morning commute is done by paddle. You're in the heart of the 15th century Aztec Empire, in its magnificent aquatic capital, Tenochtitlan. The air is thin and cool, 2,000 meters above sea level, and the world is woven from water, earth, and sky. Frankly, given that your diet here will occasionally consist of algae cakes and spicy insects, and modern medicine is still a few centuries and a whole ocean away, you probably wouldn't survive this. But tonight, we're just visiting, with no risk and all the wonder. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I invite you to leave a comment sharing where in the world you're tuning in from, and what time of day it is for you. It's always warming to know how vast our community of nocturnal historians reaches. The first thing you're aware of is not a sound, but a feeling. A deep, pervasive coolness rising from the packed earth floor beneath you, through the woven reed mat that serves as your bed. The air in your small, one-room home is still and carries the faint, clean scent of damp soil and the distant, smoky aroma of a neighbor's hearth. This is how your day begins. Not with the jolt of an alarm, but with a gradual, gentle awareness. The second thing you notice is the sound. It's not the rumble of carts or the clopping of hooves on cobblestone. It's the soft, rhythmic lapping of water, a constant, gentle whisper just beyond the whitewashed adobe walls of your house. It's the lifeblood of the city, and it's a far more soothing way to wake up than your upstairs neighbor deciding to practice their tap dancing routine at 6 a.m. You lie still for a moment on your petlattle, the reed mat, listening. You can hear the distant cry of a water bird out on Lake Texcoco and the low murmur of voices from your parents' side of the woven screen that divides the room. It's time to rise. There is no lingering. The world outside is bathed in the pre-dawn grey, the faint light that filters through your single doorway-like opening promising the arrival of the sun god, Huitzilopochtli, soon enough. You don't have a closet. Your clothes consist of a simple loincloth, the maxlatl, and a cloak called a tilmatli, draped over a wooden peg on the wall. You slip them on. The cotton is coarse, but comforting against your skin in the cool air. Your first task of the day, as it is every day, is one of absolute ritual importance: sweeping. This isn't just a chore to you, it's an act of purification, a way of bringing order to your small patch of the cosmos and showing respect to the gods. You take the small broom made of bundled stiff grasses and begin the rhythmic meditative work. You sweep the hard-packed floor of your home, pushing dust and stray debris out into the small, enclosed patio area. Then you sweep the patio. Every motion is deliberate. It's a spiritual, deep clean before your morning. Well, not coffee. More like corn porridge. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Historians note that this obsession with cleanliness was society-wide, a daily duty for everyone from the lowest commoner to the highest priest. Stepping outside your family's small compound, the world truly reveals itself. You are not on a street. You are on a narrow, raised causeway of packed earth, and on either side of you are the shimmering, dark waters of a canal. This is your road, your avenue, your everything. A neighbor glides past in a dugout canoe, their single paddle dipping into the water with a quiet splash, their silhouette stark against the brightening eastern sky. Forget rush hour traffic. You live in a world of canoe, gestion. The entire city, a marvel of engineering, is built upon these Chinampas artificial islands, created by weaving rectangular enclosures of reeds and sticks, piling them high with mud and sediment from the lake bed, and then planting willow trees at the corners, whose roots anchor the whole floating garden to the ground. This ingenious system is what allowed your ancestors, the Mexica people, to build a sprawling metropolis on what was once just a marshy, unpromising island, fulfilling a prophecy of an eagle devouring a snake while perched on a cactus. Your home is part of a kalpulai, a sort of organized neighborhood or clan, and the homes of your relatives and fellow community members line the canals around you. The city is laid out in a stunningly organized grid. In fact, historians still argue whether Tenochtitlan's astonishingly neat layout was a grand master plan from the start, or a more organic, organized evolution over time. Either way, it works. Even from your humble residential district, you can see the distant, colossal shapes of the ceremonial precinct at the city's heart. The twin temples of the Templo Mayor, the Great Temple, stand tallest, two vast pyramids dedicated to the god of sun and war, and the god of rain and water. They are the axis of your universe. Your next task is to fetch fresh water. While you live on a lake, the water in the canals is brackish and used for transport and agriculture, not for drinking. But your emperor is a practical man. Great aqueducts, marvels of stone engineering, run for miles from springs on the mainland, bringing fresh, clean water into public fountains and reservoirs throughout the city. You grab a clay jug and walk along the raised path, joining a quiet procession of your neighbors on the same errand. The air is growing warmer. The tops of the two colossal volcanoes that dominate the Valley of Mexico, Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl, catch the first direct rays of sun, glowing like celestial embers. The city is waking up, a low hum replacing the silence, and you, a single citizen in this floating world of 200,000 souls, are ready to begin your day. Returning from the fountain, clay jug cool against your shoulder, you can smell breakfast. The aroma is a warm, earthy scent that is the very foundation of your existence. Corn. Your mother is already at the metate, the three-legged grinding stone that is the centerpiece of every Aztec kitchen. She is kneeling on the floor, her body moving in a steady, powerful rhythm, grinding the dried corn kernels that have been soaked overnight in an alkaline solution of lime water. This process, called nixtamalization, is a bit of Mesoamerican chemical genius. A mainstream historical fact is that it not only softens the corn, but it also unlocks its essential nutrients like niacin, preventing malnutrition and making it a true superfood. Without this clever technique, civilizations like yours simply couldn't have grown so large and powerful on a corn-based diet. You pour the fresh water into a larger clay pot and watch your mother work. The friction of stone against stone, corn against stone, produces a fine, damp flour called masa. It's hard work, a daily physical grind that has sculpted the muscles in her arms and back over a lifetime. There are no bakeries where you can pop in for a loaf of bread. All of this, the literal daily grind, is done by hand, by the women of the household, every single day. Once the masa is ready, she pinches off a small ball, flattens it between her palms with a practiced, patting rhythm, soft, percussive sound that is as common in Tenochtitlan as birdsong, and places the thin disc onto a hot clay griddle called a comal, which sits over the hearth fire. Your breakfast is the tlaxcali, what the future will call a tortilla, but this is not the floppy, pale imitation from a plastic bag. It is warm, fragrant, slightly blistered from the heat, and full of a rich, toasted corn flavor. You take yours and dip it into a small bowl of spicy salsa made from chili peppers and tomatoes, two other staples of your diet. Beside it, there is a small bowl of something else. This isn't your everyday fare. It's a bit of a treat. It's a thick, savory paste made from ground amaranth seeds. A fringe but fascinating tidbit of your culture is that amaranth was nearly as important as corn, not just as food but as a key part of religious ceremonies. It was often mixed with honey or agave sap and sculpted into idols of the gods, which were then broken apart and eaten by the congregation. The Spanish, when they arrive, will be so unnerved by this act, seeing it as a kind of pagan parody of Christian communion, that they will outlaw the cultivation of amaranth almost entirely. But for now, it's just a delicious, protein-rich part of your morning meal. As you eat, your father prepares for his day. He is a farmer, but his farm is not acres of dry land. It is the chinampa itself, the floating garden your home is built upon. He grabs his main tool, a long wooden digging stick, with a sharpened, fire-hardened point called a uectli. He will spend his day tending the endless cycle of crops that grow in the astonishingly fertile mud of your island. Maize, beans, squash, tomatoes, and chilies. The chinampas are so productive they can yield up to 7 harvests a year, a key reason why a city this massive can sustain itself in the middle of a lake. You finish your meal, and now it's time for your beverage. Hot chocolate. But again, forget everything you think you know. This is not the sweet, milky drink of a future time. For you, cacao is a treasure. The beans are so valuable they are used as currency in the marketplace. You could get a turkey for 100 beans, or a single large tomato for one. So, this drink is reserved for the elite, for warriors, and for special ceremonial occasions. Since your family is of the commoner class, the Masa Welton, your version is a bit more humble. It's a warm porridge-like drink called atole, or atole, made from masa mixed with water. Sometimes, to sweeten it, a little honey or agave nectar is added. If you were very important, you might drink socolatl, a foamy, often bitter concoction of ground cacao mixed with chili peppers, vanilla, and other spices, whipped into a froth and served cold. A lord might drink dozens of cups a day to show off his wealth and vitality, which probably explains why they were so keen on conquering new lands. They needed more and more beans for their serious chocolate habit. As the sun climbs higher, the cool morning air begins to warm. Your family unit has eaten, and the tasks of the day are clear. Your mother will spend her morning at the loom, a backstrap loom tied to a post on the patio, her body acting as the tensioner as she skillfully weaves cotton into cloth for your family's clothes, or for tribute to the emperor. The rhythmic clacking of the weaving baton will become the backdrop to her day. Your father heads out onto the Chinampa, but your path is different. You are of school age, and in Tenochtitlan, education is compulsory for everyone, a remarkable concept for the 15th century. Depending on your social class and your aptitude, you will either go to the Telpokkali, the school for commoners, or the Karmakak, the more rigorous school for the children of nobility. This organized system of universal education is one of your society's most defining features. Historians still argue whether the Karmakak was truly exclusive to the nobility, or if an exceptionally gifted commoner child could earn a place there, a potential, if rare, avenue for social mobility. You grab your small satchel, give a nod to your parents, and step out onto the causeway. The sun is now fully above the distant mountains, its light shimmering off the vast, watery expanse of Lake Texcoco. The canals are coming alive with canoe traffic, carrying farmers' produce, fishermen's catches, and craftsmen's wares toward the great market. It is time for you to join the flow of this incredible city, your belly full of corn and your day's purpose laid out before you. The journey to school will be your morning commute, a quiet trip by canoe through the arteries of this floating metropolis. Your school is not on your family's Chinampa, so your commute begins. Forget traffic jams or crowded buses. Your version of a morning rush is far more serene. You walk to the edge of your family's land, where a small, narrow dugout canoe, a akali, is tethered to a willow tree post. It's not much more than a hollowed-out log, tippy and temperamental, but you've been paddling one since you were old enough to hold the single, leaf-shaped paddle. Pushing off from the bank, you glide into the main canal. The water is a murky, olive green, teeming with life. Small fish dart away from your shadow, and the occasional frog plops into the water from a nearby reed bank. This is your highway system, and it is beautifully, if informally, regulated. There's a natural flow to it. Faster-moving canoes carrying merchants with urgent business stick to the center of the wider canals, while people like you, on more local errands, hug the edges. A much larger canoe, a cargo vessel laden with squash and bright orange marigolds piled high, passes you by, paddled by 3 strong men chanting a rhythmic work song to keep their strokes in unison. You give them a wide berth. The logistics of supplying a city of this size are a constant, moving spectacle right before your eyes. Every piece of food that isn't grown on a Chinampa, every stone for the temples, every piece of cotton for the looms, arrives in the city on these waterways. It's a testament to a system that works, a kind of pre-industrial, aquatic version of a national highway system. A key historical fact is that Tenochtitlan was connected to the mainland by 3 massive stone and earth causeways, wide enough for 10 men to walk abreast. These were the major arteries, but it was the thousands of smaller canals, like the one you are on now, that were the city's capillaries, delivering life to every corner. As you paddle, the scenery changes. You leave the residential quiet of your Kalpulai behind, and enter more bustling sections of the city. The houses are larger here, some with 2 stories, belonging to prosperous merchants or respected warriors. Their family compounds have small stone shrines dedicated to their patron gods, adorned with fresh flowers. You pass other canoes filled with children your own age, all heading in the same direction, paddles dipping in a synchronized, unspoken rhythm. There's a quiet camaraderie to it all. It's peaceful, but you have to stay alert. A poorly timed turn or a misjudged wave from a larger boat could have you swimming in the canal, which would be more embarrassing than dangerous, though probably less hygienic than you'd prefer. Remember the lack of modern plumbing. Ahead, you can see one of the great causeways, a massive engineering marvel slicing through the lake. Wooden bridges are built into these causeways at intervals, allowing canoe traffic like yours to pass underneath. As you glide into the shadow of the bridge, you look up. The causeway is bustling with people on foot, a stream of humanity flowing in both directions. Merchants carry their wares on their backs, using a cacao, a wooden frame supported by a tump line stretched across their forehead. Your culture famously never developed the wheel for transport, not because they were incapable, but because with no draft animals like horses or oxen to pull carts, and a landscape of canals and mountainous terrain, wheels were basically useless. Seeing this, you have to admit it makes a certain kind of sense. Who needs a wagon when your whole world is a waterway? You're heading for the Tenochtitlan, the House of Youth. This is the school for the sons of commoners, like you. Its purpose is practical. Here, you won't be studying poetry or philosophy. You will be trained in the arts of warfare and the practical skills of a citizen. The curriculum is focused on turning you into a strong, disciplined, and useful member of the Aztec army and society. The school itself is a collection of low adobe buildings around a central courtyard. It's not fancy, but it is purposeful. You paddle your canoe into a small, designated inlet near the school, a sort of canoe parking lot, and tie it up among dozens of others. You can already hear the sounds from within the sharp crack of wooden practice swords striking shields, the chanted verses of historical songs, and the stern, commanding voice of one of the instructors, a veteran warrior whose scarred face tells its own stories. This is your classroom. A slightly more fringe idea, entertained by some scholars, is that these schools also served as a kind of neighborhood community center and barracks for the local warrior fraternities, a place where social bonds were forged just as much as fighting skills. Entering the courtyard, the smell of sweat and ozone hangs in the air. A group of older boys is practicing with the macuahuitl, the famed Aztec war club. It's a flat wooden paddle, edged with razor-sharp obsidian blades, a weapon capable of inflicting horrific damage. For now, they are using bladeless wooden versions, but the intensity is real. Their instructor, a grizzled warrior, circles them, shouting corrections and encouragement. In another corner, a younger group is being drilled on endurance, running endless laps around the patio until they are ready to drop. This is your world from the moment you can walk until the day you marry. It's a system designed to create a warrior society, and it is incredibly effective. The Aztec Empire was not built on gentle diplomacy, after all. You find your group, a collection of boys your age. Today's lesson is not on weaponry, but on history and duty. You all sit on reed mats as an elder recounts the stories of your people, the long migration from the mythical homeland of Aztlan, the divine command of your patron god Huitzilopochtli, the founding of Tenochtitlan, and the great victories of the emperors. You are taught these stories, these songs, these histories by rote memorization. You must learn them perfectly. They are your identity. They explain your place in the cosmos and your duty to the Empyrean duty that will, one day soon, see you marching onto a battlefield, ready to take captives for the gods. But for now, you are just a boy, sitting in a sunny courtyard, the sound of water just beyond the walls, learning what it means to be Mexica. Your education at the Tenochtitlan is a world away from what is happening in the other type of school, the Kalmakak. Had you been born a pili, a member of the nobility, your morning canoe commute would have taken you to a far more imposing and revered institution. The Kalmakak, which translates to House of the Lineage, was a place of intense austerity, intellectual rigor, and profound spiritual significance. It was less a school and more a seminary for the future leaders of the empire. While you're practicing with wooden clubs and learning war songs, a noble youth is enduring a regimen that makes your day look like a vacation. Imagine that young noble. His day begins even earlier than yours, long before dawn, with a ritual of icy purification. He is led from his Spartan dormitory, a shared room with a simple reed mat for a bed, to a cold pool or a nearby spring for a frigid bath. This is not for hygiene. It is to build fortitude, to shock the body into a state of alert devotion, to wash away sleep and weakness. Following this, his first duty is to perform acts of penance and self-sacrifice. A common practice was bloodletting, using a sharp Magi spine or an obsidian blade to pierce his earlobes or tongue, offering a few drops of his own precious blood to the gods. This act instills a personal, painful understanding of the cosmic debt your people believe they owe to the deities who sacrificed themselves to create the world. His breakfast, if it can be called that, is meager. While you enjoy a warm tortilla, he might receive only a single, small tortilla, often stale, and a cup of water. The diet at the Karmakak was deliberately sparse and punishing. Fasting was a regular part of the curriculum. The goal was to master the body, to subjugate its base desires for comfort and sustenance, to prove that the spirit and the will were stronger than the flesh. It was a philosophy of leadership built on the idea that one cannot command others until one has achieved absolute command of oneself. A slightly more playful, fringe idea is that this constant state of near starvation might have also made the students more susceptible to the visionary and spiritual states the priests wished to cultivate. A hungry stomach can certainly lead to a light head. The academic curriculum is where the true divergence lies. The noble youth's day is filled with the study of the empire's most complex knowledge. He doesn't just learn the war songs, he learns to read and write the intricate system of pictographs and glyphs that make up Aztec writing. This is a powerful, sacred skill. He studies the tonal powali, the 260-day sacred calendar, a complex system of interlocking cycles that governs religious rituals and divines the fate of every individual. He must memorize the specific attributes and omens associated with each day sign, a feat of memory that is truly staggering. He learns rhetoric, the art of noble speech, mastering the flowery, formal, and deeply respectful language required in the court of the Tlatoani, the emperor. His lessons in astronomy are not just about finding constellations. They are about understanding the precise movements of the stars and planets to determine the timing of festivals and the most auspicious moments for war or the coronation of a king. It is a science deeply intertwined with theology. Historians have confirmed that Aztec astronomers could predict solar and lunar eclipses with remarkable accuracy, viewing them not just as celestial events, but as potent spiritual omens. A well-timed prediction could grant a priest or ruler immense power and influence over the populace. And, of course, there is music and poetry. While you are learning the hearty, percussive songs of the battlefield, the Karmakak student is mastering the flute, singing the highly metaphorical and philosophical flower songs, and learning the epic poems that are considered the highest form of artistic expression. For your culture, poetry wasn't just a diversion. It was a way of accessing a higher truth, of speaking with the gods. It was a core competency for any aspiring leader or priest. The discipline is absolute. Any infractione missed ritual, a moment of laziness, an act of disrespect is met with harsh punishment. A beating with a stick was a mild response. More serious offences could involve piercing the skin with sharp thorns or being forced to lie naked on a stone floor overnight. The intent was to create a generation of leaders who were utterly disciplined, pious, and fearless. There is a scholarly debate, however, on just how much this brutal training forged character versus how much it simply encouraged a culture of conformity and fear among the elite. It's hard to be a creative, outside-the-box thinker when you're terrified of being pricked with a cactus spine for coloring outside the lines. This entire system, this stark contrast between your practical, military-focused education and the noble's ascetic, intellectual one, is the engine that drives the empire. The Telpoch Kali produces the thousands of brave, disciplined soldiers needed to expand the borders and enforce tribute. The Karmakak produces the handful of priests, scribes, engineers, and rulers needed to manage the vast, complex machinery of the state and the cosmos. Both are essential. One is the muscle, the other is the mind. And so, as you spend your afternoon running drills in the dusty courtyard of the Telpok Kali, dreaming of the day you will capture your first prisoner in battle and earn your first honors, your noble counterpart is likely kneeling in a dimly lit temple, fasting, studying a complex astrological chart, his body aching from cold and hunger, but his mind sharp and focused on the abstract secrets of the universe. You are both being forged into the men the Empire requires you to be, your paths running in parallel through this incredible floating city, destined never to truly intersect, but to work together as a whole. Your separate journeys are two sides of the same imperial coin. For both you and your noble counterpart, the long day of lessons, whether in combat or calendrics, eventually comes to a close. As the afternoon sun begins its descent towards the jagged peaks on the far side of the lake, the city's energy shifts. The disciplined focus of work and school begins to dissolve, replaced by the vibrant, chaotic hum of the marketplace. This is the heart of Tenochtitlan's economic and social life, and on certain days of the week, your journey home from school might include an errand that takes you right into its dizzying center, the great market of Tlatelolco. Tlatelolco was once a rival city-state before it was absorbed into Tenochtitlan, but it retained its status as the commercial hub. Its market was the largest in the Americas, a sprawling, astonishingly well-organized spectacle that could attract as many as 60,000 people on a busy day. Getting there involves paddling your canoe into one of the main, wider canals, which now teem with traffic. These are the city's freeways, and they are thick, with cargo canoes laden with every imaginable good, heading for the market's dedicated docks. You navigate through the gentle chaos, the mingled sounds of rhythmic paddling, vendors shouting across the water, and the distant, constant murmur of a vast crowd. You leave your canoe and walk into the market proper. The scale of it is almost overwhelming. It's not a haphazard collection of stalls. It's a vast, open plaza, a city within a city, with dedicated sections for every kind of product imaginable. There is no money in your world, no coins to jingle in your pocket. This entire, massive economy runs on a sophisticated system of barter and trade, with a few items serving as a commonly accepted currency. The most important of these are cacao beans. A mainstream historical fact is the precise exchange rates recorded by early Spanish chroniclers, providing a clear window into Aztec economics. As you know, one small bean might buy you a tomato, while a feathered cloak of a warrior might cost hundreds, even thousands, of beans. Large white cotton cloaks, called quashli, also served as a form of currency for bigger transactions. Your mother has given you a small bag of beans to trade for some chilies and perhaps a block of prized salt, brought all the way from the coastal lowlands. You make your way through the throng. The air is thick with 100 different smells. The sweet scent of tropical fruits you've never seen before, brought by traders from distant provinces. The sharp, earthy smell of dried chili peppers that makes your nose tingle. The savory aroma of vendors cooking food over charcoal braziers. It's an assault on the senses, a glorious one. It's the 15th century version of a sprawling, chaotic, and infinitely more interesting shopping mall. The organization is remarkable. You walk past the section for food. Here are piles of blue, red, and yellow maize. Baskets overflowing with beans, squash, and spirulina algae skimmed from the lake, which is dried into the nutrient-rich cakes you sometimes eat for lunch. There are sellers of honey, agave syrup, and vanilla beans. Further on is the butcher's section, a slightly more intense experience. Here you see hairless dogs, which were bred specifically for meat, alongside turkeys, ducks, and various game from the surrounding forests. A fringe tidbit is that while most modern people find the idea of eating dog unsettling, for the Aztecs, the Exoloit squintly was a respected source of protein and a spiritual companion believed to guide its owner's soul through the underworld of Mictlan. So, Fido was both your dinner and your afterlife travel guide, a multi-purpose pet, if ever there was one. You pass the vendors selling pottery, every shape and size, from simple cooking pots to intricately painted ceremonial vessels. There is the section for tools, where you can find sharp obsidian blades, volcanic stone for grinding corn, and wooden digging sticks. Then you come to the most dazzling section of all, the luxury goods. Here, craftsmen sell their magnificent creations. There are cloaks woven with the iridescent feathers of the quetzal and hummingbird, shimmering in the sunlight. There are jewelers working with gold, silver, turquoise and jade, crafting delicate earrings, necklaces and labrets, the decorative plugs worn in the lower lip. The skill of these artisans is breathtaking. You see merchants who have traveled hundreds of miles, the Pochteca, a powerful and respected guild who act as the empire's long-distance traders and, some whisper, its spies. They have brought exotic goods like jaguar pelts and bright macaw feathers from the deep jungles of the south. Of course, with so many people and so much valuable trade, there have to be rules. In the center of the market sits a courthouse with judges. If a dispute breaks out, if a seller gives a short measure or a product is not as advertised, the parties are brought before these judges, who listen to the case and deliver a verdict on the spot. Justice is swift and public, a necessity to maintain the trust that allows the entire system to function. Historians still argue over the exact nature of their legal proceedings, but the consensus is that the system was effective, relying on established codes and witness testimony to maintain order. You finally find the spice vendors, the air thick with the pungent aroma of dozens of varieties of chilies. You barter a few of your precious cacao beans for a handful of smoky, dried chipotes. The transaction is done with respectful, formal language, a miniature dance of negotiation. Having completed your errand, you begin to thread your way back through the living, breathing heart of the empire. The market of Tlatelolco is more than just a place to buy things. It's a testament to the power and reach of your emperor. It's proof that this city, floating impossibly in the middle of a lake, is the center of the world you know. Your small part in it is done, and now it's time to paddle home as the afternoon light begins to fade. As you paddle away from the bustling chaos of the market, the sun hangs lower in the sky, casting long, liquid shadows across the canals. The journey home is quieter, more reflective. In the distance, cleared now of the morning haze, the great ceremonial heart of your city, the sacred precinct, dominates the skyline. It's an awe-inspiring sight, a man-made mountain range of stone and plaster rising from the water, and its centerpiece, the structure that is the literal and spiritual axis of your universe, is the Templo Mayor, the Great Temple. Your canoe drifts past the edge of the precinct, which is enclosed by a stone wall known as the Cotapantli, or Serpent Wall, carved with the writhing forms of hundreds of snakes. Even from this distance, you can feel the immense spiritual gravity of the place. It's a vast square, a consecrated zone at the exact center of the city, from which the four great causeways radiate out to the four corners of the world. It's not just a collection of buildings, it's a model of the cosmos, a place where the human world touches the divine. The Templo Mayor itself is a colossal stepped pyramid, but it's unlike the smooth-sided pyramids of distant Egypt. It is, in fact, two pyramids built side by side on a single, massive platform, with two grand staircases leading up its face to two separate temples at its summit. One temple, painted with blue and white motifs, is dedicated to Tlaloc, the powerful and ancient god of rain, water, and fertility. He is the god you thank for the life-giving waters of the lake and the rain that nourishes the crops on your Chinampa. The other temple, painted a stark, brilliant red and white, is dedicated to your tribe's patron god, Huitzilopochtli, the god of the sun and of war, the insatiable southern hummingbird. He is the god who guided your ancestors to this spot, and whose cosmic battle against darkness requires constant fuel. It's a mainstream historical fact that this dual nature represents the core of the Aztec economy and ideology. Atl-Tlaquinoli, meaning water and burnt earth, the symbol for sacred warfare. Tlaloc provides the water for agriculture, the basis of your subsistence, while Huitzilopochtli demands the burnt earth of war to keep the sun in the sky. Your entire existence is balanced between these two divine forces, and the great temple is their earthly dwelling place. You live your life in the shadow of this profound and demanding duality. It's a bit like having a landlord who controls the water and another who controls the electricity, and you have to keep both of them very, very happy at all times, or the whole building goes dark. A fascinating fringe tidbit about the Templo Mayor is what lay beneath it. Like a set of Russian nesting dolls, the pyramid was not built all at once. Successive emperors, upon their coronation or after a great military victory, would build a new, larger pyramid directly on top of the old one, encasing it completely. Archaeologists excavating the ruins in the 20th century discovered at least 6 older versions of the temple layered inside the final one. These layers are a frozen history of the empire's growth, with each layer containing sacrificial offerings from its specific era, precious jade masks from conquered territories, coral and shells from the distant coasts, stone figures of strange gods from vassal states. It was a massive, sacred onion of history and tribute. All around the great temple stand other, smaller temples and platforms. There's a circular pyramid dedicated to Ehecatl Quetzalcoatl, the god of the wind, its entrance shaped like a serpent's open mouth, designed to allow the wind god to easily blow his way in and out. There's the great Tzompantli, a huge wooden rack displaying thousands of the skulls of sacrificial victims, a grim and public testament to the empire's piety and military might. There are the priests' quarters, the ball court, and pools for ritual purification. The entire precinct is paved with white stucco, kept immaculately clean by an army of sweepers. When the sun hits it just right, the glare is almost blinding. You have never been to the top of the great temple. That is a privilege reserved for the Tlatoani and the high priests. But you have stood at its base during great festivals, lost in a crowd of thousands, watching the grand processions, smelling the cloying scent of copal incense burning in clay braziers, and hearing the thunderous beat of the great serpent skin drum that sits at the summit. From your low canoe on the water, you can only see the top half of the structure, but its power is undeniable. Historians still argue about the exact population of Tenochtitlan, with estimates ranging from 200, 0, to over 350, 0, but they all agree it was one of the largest and most populous cities in the world at the time, dwarfing contemporaries like London or Paris. And the sacred precinct was designed to awe every single one of those inhabitants. The temple represents the apex of your people's journey. It began, as the stories you learned in school recount, with a small band of migrants, and it culminated in this monumental axis of empire. The stone it is built from was quarried miles away, transported on rafts and by the sheer muscle power of thousands of laborers. The lime plaster that coats it was a product of a vast and organized industry. Its very existence is a statement of power, a declaration of your people's place at the center of the universe. The sun continues to sink, its light catching the red paint of Huitzilopochtli's shrine, making it glow as if it were on fire. The sight sends a shiver down your spine, a mix of reverence and a deep, instinctual fear. The gods are close here. They are powerful, and they are always, always hungry. You pick up your paddle again, turning your small canoe away from the imposing heart of the city and back towards the familiar, quiet canals of your own neighborhood. The grand spectacle of the gods is for the priests. Your world, for now, is one of water, mud, and the promise of a simple evening meal. You arrive back at your family's Chinampa as the sky softens into shades of orange and purple. The day's labor, for both you and your parents, is done. The cool evening air carries on it the smell of wood smoke from 100 different hearths, a communal perfume that signals the end of work and the beginning of rest. Inside your small home, a comforting fire crackles in the hearth, a shallow pit in the center of the room. There are no chimneys in Aztec houses. The smoke finds its way out through the open doorway or small vents in the roof, a design feature that ensures you'll never have to worry about a new house smell, but might occasionally have to worry about new smoke in eyes syndrome. The main meal of the day is taken in the evening. It's a more substantial affair than your simple morning tortilla. Tonight, your mother has prepared a hearty stew, She ladles it from a clay pot into 3 simple earthenware bowls. You gather on your reed mats around the hearth, the flickering firelight casting warm, dancing shadows on the whitewashed walls. The main ingredient of the stew is, of course, corn in the form of hearty kernels, but mixed in are beans and pieces of squash from your father's garden. And, for protein, there are a handful of tiny freshwater shrimp. This is a good meal, a representation of the bounty of the lake. A significant historical fact is that the Aztecs were masters of exploiting their unique lacustrine environment. They didn't just farm on the chinampas, they harvested the lake itself. Your father, like many men, would spend part of his day with a fine mesh net, scooping up not just small fish and shrimp, but also insect eggs, dragonfly larvae, and various water bugs. These were toasted, ground up, and formed into nutritious, protein-packed cakes. To our modern sensibilities, it sounds challenging, but for you, it's just food, and it's a far more sustainable source of protein than raising large livestock would be in this environment. And then, there is the main delicacy in your bowl tonight. Something that gives the stew a distinctive, salty flavor and a slightly gelatinous texture. It is a dark green sheet, broken into pieces. This is Tenochtitlan, a type of algae, specifically spirulina, skimmed from the surface of the lake and dried into cakes. You have probably eaten more spirulina this week than a modern-day health food enthusiast does in a year. A truly fringe and fascinating tidbit is the account of one Spanish friar who described it as having a cheesy taste and noted that the Aztecs would often export it as a valuable trade good. So, while the rest of the world was trading in silk and spices, your people had cornered the market on high-quality pond scum. There are no forks or spoons. You use a rolled-up piece of a warm tortilla, a tlaxcali, to scoop up the stew, a delicious, edible utensil. Your father recounts his day on the chinampa, complaining about a particular water bird that has taken a liking to his chili plants. Your mother talks about the pattern she is weaving into her new cloth. You recount the history lesson you learned at school. It is a quiet, domestic scene, the universal rhythm of a family sharing a meal and the stories of their day, a scene that would be recognizable in almost any culture at any time in history. The drink with your meal is plain, cool water from the jug you filled this morning. Sugary or alcoholic drinks are not for everyday consumption. The main alcoholic beverage in your world is pulque, or octli, a fermented, milky white sap from the magi plant. However, its consumption is strictly regulated by law. Public drunkenness is a major social taboo, and a commoner like you found drunk in public could face severe punishment, from having your head shaved as a mark of public shame for a first offense to being clubbed to death for a second. It was a society that enjoyed a good time, but only at the designated time. Historians still argue about whether this strict prohibition was about maintaining social order or about reserving the sacred, intoxicating effects of pulque for religious ceremonies and the respected elderly who were permitted to drink it freely. Basically, retirement in Tenochtitlan came with some serious perks. As the meal winds down, the fire dies to glowing embers. There is no other light, save for the moon and stars shining down through the doorway. The city outside grows quiet. The bustling traffic on the canals subsides, replaced by the nocturnal sounds of the lake, the chirping of crickets, the deep croak of a bullfrog, the gentle, constant lapping of the water. Your home is a small island of warmth and security in the vast, watery darkness. Your parents might share another story, a myth about the creation of the world or the exploits of a trickster god like Huehuecoyotl, the old coyote. Or perhaps your father, who has a good voice, will quietly sing one of the old songs. These oral traditions are your entertainment, your library, and your connection to the generations that came before. There is a deep peace in this moment. The day has been full, a perfect blend of work, learning, and family. The cycles of the sun and the stomach have been satisfied. Soon, it will be time to unroll your reed mat and give yourself over to the silence of a night in the floating city. In the quiet hours after the evening meal, as the fire dies down to a soft red glow, the day is not always completely over. While your mother might continue her weaving by the faint light, or your father might mend a fishing net, This is often a time for craft and creation. For you, an adolescent boy, this means practice. It means handling the materials that define your culture's technological and military edge. Tonight, the focus is on a substance born of fire and earth, a material as beautiful as it is deadly: obsidian. Your uncle, a respected craftsman in your Kalpuli, has come to visit, bringing with him a core of the precious volcanic glass. Obsidian, a mainstream historical fact, was the primary material for almost all cutting tools in Mesoamerica. It is not a metal, but it can be knapped to produce an edge that is phenomenally sharp, many times sharper than a modern steel surgical scalpel. Its sharpness, however, comes with a trade-off. It is brittle. An obsidian blade can shatter on impact with bone or another hard surface, which is why your warriors carry clubs embedded with multiple small blades rather than a single large sword. Your uncle settles himself on a mat near the hearth. He is a master of pressure flaking, the advanced technique for shaping obsidian. He holds the dark, glassy core in one hand and uses a sharpened deer antler as a tool, applying precise, controlled pressure to the edge of the core. With a distinct, sharp click, a long, thin sliver of obsidian flakes off a bladelet, perfectly formed, with an edge of microscopic thinness. He hands it to you, and you handle it with immense care. It feels cool and light in your hand, its surface like black, frozen water. You know from experience that even the slightest careless touch can leave you with a deep, bloodless cut. Your job tonight is a simple one, an apprentice's task. Your uncle produces several wooden shafts for arrows. He has already cut a small notch in the tip of each one. Your task is to secure smaller obsidian points, which he has already shaped into these notches. The binding agent is a homemade glue, a sticky, resinous substance derived from pine sap and other secret ingredients, heated over the embers to make it pliable. You carefully apply the warm, fragrant adhesive and set the arrowhead in place. Then bind it tightly with fine, strong cord made from magui fiber. It is slow, meticulous work. It requires patience and a steady hand. One slip, and you could ruin the arrowhead or slice your finger open. Every warrior needs arrows, and it is a task like this, repeated thousands of times in households across the city, that supplies the great Aztec war machine. A fringe and fascinating aspect of your obsidian culture is the existence of the eccentric flint. These are incredibly elaborate, almost impossibly delicate objects knapped from obsidian or flint by master artisans. They aren't tools or weapons. They are artistic representations of human profiles, animals, or complex geometric shapes. Their function purely ceremonial or decorative. They represent the absolute pinnacle of this lithic technology, a craftsman showing off his skill simply for the sake of beauty and reverence, proving that even a culture of Stone Age technology can produce art of breathtaking sophistication and delicacy. It's the 15th century equivalent of a master coder, writing a beautiful, useless, but technically brilliant piece of software just to prove they can. As you work, your uncle tells stories. He doesn't just teach you the craft, he teaches you the spirit of the material. He tells you that obsidian is the blood of the earth, a sacred substance with its own soul. He explains that different sources of obsidian have different qualities. The green-tinged obsidian from Pachuca is highly prized, while the more common grey or black varieties have their own specific uses. He is a geologist and an artist combined. You look at the finished arrows, their dark points gleaming in the firelight. They are objects of lethal purpose, yet there is a stark beauty to them. This is a paradox you see everywhere in your culture. Your poetry is filled with flowers and beauty, but it is often about the glory of war. Your most magnificent temples are sites of grisly ritual. You create intricate featherwork and delicate jewelry, yet you are also a society built on conquest and tribute. Historians still argue whether this blending of profound artistry with brutal militarism represents a fundamental contradiction in the Aztec worldview, or if, to your people, there was no contradiction at all. Perhaps beauty and bloodshed, flowers and sacrifice, were seen as two necessary and complementary halves of a balanced, if brutal, cosmos. You finish your task, your fingers sticky with resin, Your uncle inspects your work, nodding his quiet approval. These arrows you have helped make will not be used by you. Not yet. They are part of the tribute your Calpulli owes to the Emperor. They will go to the Imperial Armory, to be used by the seasoned warriors of the Jaguar and Eagle knightly orders. But the practice has brought you closer to that world. By learning to make the tools of war, you are learning the responsibilities of a man. The night deepens. Your uncle departs, disappearing into the darkness of the canals as quietly as he arrived. The finished arrows are stored carefully. The embers of the fire are now a soft, pulsing red. The lessons of the day both at the school and at home are complete. You have learned of history, and you have participated in the creation of its sharpest edge. You unroll your mat, the coarse texture a familiar comfort, and lie down. The coolness of the earth floor feels good against your skin after the day's activity. The city is finally asleep, a great, dark beast resting on the water, and you, one of its millions of cells, drift off into your own small, quiet darkness. The quiet domesticity of your evenings and the structured discipline of your days exist within a larger framework of absolute order. The harmony of Tenochtitlan, with its hundreds of thousands of souls packed onto small islands, is not an accident. It is the result of a strict, clear, and uncompromising legal system. While your adolescent world is governed by parents and teachers, the adult world is governed by judges and the fear of swift, severe punishment. Justice in the Aztec Empire is a public and deeply serious affair. One afternoon, your usual canoe route home is blocked. A crowd has gathered on one of the wider causeways near the market district, their attention focused on a low, stone platform. You moor your canoe and join the silent onlookers. On the platform stand three figures. A man in the simple loincloth of a farmer, his head bowed. Another man, more richly dressed, a merchant, pointing an accusatory finger, and between them, a seated judge. The judge is an older man, his face a mask of stern neutrality, his cloak and position marking him as one of the city's designated arbiters. Your society has a tiered legal system. Petty crimes and local disputes are often handled by a council of elders within your own Calpulli, but more serious matters are brought to these official courts. You listen to the proceedings. The merchant claims the farmer sold him a canoe load of maize, but secretly padded the bottom of the boat with rocks and reeds, cheating him of the full measure. The farmer denies it, his voice trembling slightly. There are no lawyers here to argue technicalities or file motions. The system relies on the presentation of evidence, the testimony of witnesses, and the wisdom of the judge. After a few witnesses from the market are called and speak, the judge deliberates for only a few moments before delivering his verdict. A mainstream historical fact is that Aztec justice was notoriously swift. There were no lengthy trials or appeals processes. For most crimes, judgment was rendered and the sentence carried out, often on the same day. The judge finds the farmer guilty. The punishment is stark. The farmer must not only return the full value of the goods to the merchant, but also pay an additional fine in cotton cloaks. For a crime like theft or fraud, this is a relatively mild outcome. Had it been a more serious offense, the consequences would be terrifying. Your legal code is comprehensive, covering everything from land disputes and debt to slander and adultery. And the punishments for breaking these laws are designed to be a powerful deterrent. Public drunkenness, as you know, is a cardinal sin for a commoner. Adultery, considered a profound disruption of the social order, was almost always punishable by death for both parties, often by stoning. A fringe or quirky aspect of your legal system, however, was its class-based nature. While punishments were severe for everyone, they were often even harsher for the nobility. The rationale was that the pili, the elite, were held to a higher standard. They had been educated in the Karmakak, they understood the laws of gods and men, and therefore their transgressions were a greater betrayal of the cosmic order. A noble found guilty of a high crime might be strangled privately to preserve the dignity of his lineage, while a commoner might face a more brutal public execution. It's a strange sort of progressive punishment system. The more privileged you are, the bigger the trouble you're in when you mess up. You watch as the farmer is led away by temple guards to fulfill his sentence, his face a picture of shame. The crowd disperses quietly. The spectacle serves its purpose. It reinforces the rules. It reminds everyone that the gods and the Tlatoani demand order, honesty, and discipline. The efficiency is chilling. Historians still argue whether this system should be characterized as fair and effective or as simply brutal and authoritarian. The truth is likely somewhere in between. It maintained a remarkable degree of peace and public order in a massive, densely populated city, but it did so through a culture of profound, ever-present fear. The law even extends to your appearance and dress. There are strict sumptuary laws in place. As a commoner, you are permitted to wear simple cotton cloaks, but you could never wear the bright green feathers of the Quetzal bird. That is a right reserved for the emperor and the highest nobility. You could not build a second story on your house. That is a privilege for the elite. These laws aren't just about fashion. They are about reinforcing the rigid social hierarchy. Everyone has their place in the Aztec world, and the law ensures you know exactly where that is, right down to the length of your cloak. Breaking these codes could result in the confiscation of your property or even death. As you paddle away from the scene of the trial, the setting sun glints off the calm waters of the canal. The moment of public drama is over, and the peaceful, aquatic rhythm of the city returns. But the lesson lingers. The city's beauty, its astonishing organization, its ability to feed and house so many, all rests on this invisible foundation of unyielding law. It's the hard stone beneath the soft mud of the Chinampas. You understand on a deeper level now that your life, from the food you eat to the lessons you learn, is prescribed. Your freedoms are few, but your duties are many. Your world is safe, ordered, and predictable, because the alternative, the chaos that is seen as an affront to the gods, is kept at bay by a swift and unforgiving hand. The trial was a small but potent reminder that in Tenochtitlan, the heart of the empire, order is everything. While much of your life is defined by hard work, disciplined schooling, and a healthy fear of the law, it is not without its moments of spectacle and communal entertainment. The most important of these is the great ball game, Ollama. This is not just a sport, it's a religious ritual, a cosmic drama, and an incredibly dangerous athletic contest all rolled into one. On special festival days, the entire city's energy focuses on the Tlacti, the sacred ball court. One such day has arrived. Work ceases, lessons are cancelled. A palpable excitement hums through the air. You and your family join the throng of people making their way towards the sacred precinct, where the city's most important ball court is located, near the base of the Templo Mayor. You've seen smaller games played on neighborhood courts, but this is a major event, sponsored by the emperor himself, with the best players from across the empire. The court is not a grassy field. It's a long, narrow alley with high, sloping stone walls on either side. Its shape, like a capital I, is symbolic, representing a gateway to the underworld. High on each wall is a single, vertically mounted stone ring, barely larger than the ball itself. The crowd, a vibrant sea of cotton cloaks and colorful adornments, jostles for position on the viewing platforms atop the great walls. The atmosphere is electric. It's the Super Bowl, the World Cup final, and a high-stakes religious ceremony combined. It's way more intense than just cheering for your favorite team. Here, you're cheering for the continued existence of the cosmos. The ball itself is a small, solid sphere of hard rubber, weighing as much as 4 kilograms, or 9 pounds. A mainstream historical fact is that Mesoamerican peoples were the first in the world to invent the vulcanization of rubber, using sap from the Castilla elastica tree and mixing it with juice from the morning glory vine to create a bouncy, durable material. This technological marvel, centuries ahead of its time, is what makes the game possible. 2 teams of 2 players enter the court. They are magnificent specimens of manhood, their bodies honed to the peak of physical condition. They wear little more than loincloths and thick, protective leather padding around their hips, thighs, and sometimes their knees and hands. The rules of the game are deceptively simple. The goal is to keep the heavy rubber ball in play and to score points by hitting it against the opposing team's end wall. But here's the catch. You are forbidden from using your hands or your feet. You can only use your hips, your thighs, and sometimes your upper arms and head. The high priests throw the ball into the court to start the game, and the action is immediate and explosive. The players lunge, dive, and slide across the paved floor, twisting their bodies to strike the ball with their leather-padded hips. The thud of dense rubber against flesh and stone echoes through the court. It's incredibly fast-paced and brutal. Players suffer massive bruising, internal injuries, and broken bones. An errant ball hitting a player in the head or stomach could easily be fatal. This is not a game for the faint of heart. It is a serious, life-threatening athletic performance. The ultimate goal, the near impossible shot that can win the game outright, is to drive the ball through one of the stone rings. This feat is so rare that when it happens, the player who achieved it is celebrated as a living legend. A quirky and fascinating tradition holds that if a player made such a shot, he and his teammates had the right to claim the cloaks and jewels of the spectators. This rule probably led to some very fast, very chaotic post-game exits by the wealthier members of the crowd whenever a shot got close to the ring. Incredible shot. Now, everyone run for your cloaks. The game is more than just a contest of skill. It is a reenactment of the cosmic struggle. For your people, the court represents the world, and the ball represents the sun, the moon, or the stars. The players are not just athletes, they are cosmic warriors, replaying the mythical battles of the gods, their physical struggle, ensuring that the celestial bodies continue on their proper course. Some historians believe the game represents the battle of the sun god Huitzilopochtli against his sister, the moon goddess, ensuring the sun will rise again each day. Others see it as a representation of the struggle between life and death. The exact meaning is still a subject of intense scholarly debate and likely varied from region to region. The stakes could be incredibly high. While the best players were treated like modern sports superstars, lauded and showered with gifts, the fate of the losing team could be grim. Often, especially in games with high ceremonial importance, the captain of the losing team and, sometimes the entire team, was ritually sacrificed after the match. Their death was seen not as a punishment, but as a noble offering to the gods, a final, sacred act that fed the cosmic order they had just reenacted. This knowledge adds a layer of profound gravity to the spectacle you are witnessing. The players are not just playing for victory, they are literally playing for their lives. The back and forth is mesmerizing. The players move with a grace and power that is almost superhuman. The ball smacks against the stone walls with thunderous cracks. The crowd roars with every successful volley, groans with every miss. You are caught up in the rhythm, the drama, the sheer physical intensity of it all. You are not a passive spectator, you are a participant in the ritual, your energy and focus adding to the sacred power of the event. The great Aztec ball game is a perfect microcosm of your world. Deeply religious, brutally violent, breathtakingly skillful, and utterly, captivatingly alive. The fate of the universe hangs in the balance, decided by a solid rubber ball and the hips of 4 powerful men. The exhilarating spectacle of the ball game and the sprawling anonymity of the market are grand, public affairs. But the true anchor of your identity, the nucleus of your social world, is much smaller and more intimate. It is your kalpuli. This concept is crucial to understanding how Tenochtitlan functions, not just as a city, but as a society. The word is often translated as neighborhood or clan, but neither term quite captures its full meaning. Your kalpuli is a group of families, like yours, who are believed to be descended from a common ancestor. It is your extended family, your local government, your professional guild, and your religious congregation, all rolled into one. You live together in a designated district of the city, a cluster of chinampas and houses that forms a distinct community. The canal you paddled down this morning is the main artery of your kalpuli. The school you attend, the Telpokkali, is specifically for the children of your kalpuli. Your family doesn't own your land in the modern sense. A key historical fact is that land in the Aztec Empire was held communally by the kalpuli. The Kalpuli Council, a group of elected elders led by a chief, assigns each family a plot of land to farm, a portion of the chinampas that is theirs to use for as long as they work it. If a family dies out or moves away, the land reverts to the kalpuli to be reassigned to another family in need. This system ensures that everyone has access to the means of subsistence and fosters a powerful sense of collective ownership and responsibility. It's a bit like living in a homeowners association with way more power, one that owns your house, runs your school, and also expects you to show up for military duty. This collective structure defines your obligations. A significant portion of the harvest from your father's chinampa does not go to your family. It goes into the communal storehouse of the Kalpuli. From here, a portion is set aside to feed the chief and the elders. Another portion is sent to the central government in the sacred precinct as the Kalpuli's collective tribute to the Tlatoani, and the rest is kept in reserve to support the community's widows, orphans, and those too old or sick to work their own land. It's a built-in social safety net. You contribute to the whole, and in return, the whole will support you if you fall on hard times. The Kalpuli also functions as a military unit. When the emperor calls for a military campaign, a specific number of warriors is levied from each Kalpuli. The men of your community, the very same men you see every day mending nets and tending crops, will form a regiment, marching into battle together under the banner of your Kalpuli's specific patron god. The Telpokali you attend is the training ground for this. The bonds you form with the other boys in the dusty courtyard of the school are the same bonds that will be tested by the terror and chaos of the battlefield. You will fight alongside the men you have known your entire life, which fosters immense loyalty and bravery. There is, of course, a degree of specialization. While most families in your particular Kalpuli are farmers, other Kalpulis are known for their specific crafts. There might be a featherworker's Kalpuli, where nearly every family is involved in the delicate art of creating mosaics from hummingbird and quetzal feathers. Another might be a potter's Kalpuli, their kilns sending up a constant, thin stream of smoke. Or a Pokteka Kalpuli, the powerful guild of long-distance merchants who live in their own exclusive district and have their own gods and laws. Historians still debate the level of social mobility between these groups, but it seems that for the most part, you were born into your Kalpuli's profession. You learned the trade of your father and mother, just as they learned it from their parents before them. This identity is also spiritual. Each Kalpuli has its own small temple dedicated to the patron deity of your clan. It's not as grand as the Templo Mayor, but it is the focal point of your local religious life. Here, you celebrate the festivals specific to your god, you offer sacrifices, and you seek guidance from the local priests, who are themselves members of your community. It provides a more personal and accessible connection to the divine than the massive, impersonal ceremonies of the state religion. A more fringe aspect of the Kalpuli system involves the keeping of records. While the great historical chronicles were maintained by the high priests in the sacred precinct, each Kalpuli likely kept its own set of record-coded pictorial manuscripts that traced the lineage of its families, recorded land distribution, and logged its tribute payments. These were the community's private archives, its collective memory, lightly guarded fiercely by the chief. They would have been a vital source of a Kalpuli's unique identity and its historical claims to land and status. Most of these local documents, sadly, did not survive the conquest, leaving us with only the state-level version of history. As you sit in your home in the evening, you are keenly aware of this web of connection. The man next door is not just a neighbor, he is your kinsman, a fellow farmer who works land assigned by the same council, a fellow soldier who will one day march beside you. Your loyalty is multi-layered, first to your immediate family, then to your Kalpuli, and finally, to the Tlatoani and the empire as a whole. Your identity is not just individual, it is deeply, profoundly communal. You are a single thread in a tightly woven cloth, and your strength, your purpose, and your security all come from being part of that larger fabric. The sun finally touches the horizon, a burning ember sinking behind the colossal peaks of the Sierra Madre Mountains. This is the moment the city holds its breath. The workday is over, the marketplace is emptying, the religious ceremonies are concluding. An ethereal, transformative light floods the Valley of Mexico, and your floating world is painted in impossible colors. You make your way to the edge of your chinampa, sitting on the packed earth with your legs dangling just above the cool water of the canal. The water, once a murky green in the harsh light of midday, now acts as a perfect, dark mirror, reflecting the spectacular drama of the sky. The heavens are a canvas of fiery orange, deep magenta, and soft, violet hues. The twin volcanoes, Popocatépetl and Iztaccíhuatl, are no longer just mountains. They are grand, purple silhouettes, guardians of your valley, their snowy peaks catching the last, brilliant rays of sunlight. This time of day has a name in your language, Nahuatl. It is Teotlak, the divine evening, the time when the sun god Huitzilopochtli, weary from his long battle across the sky, prepares to enter the underworld for his nightly journey through the realm of the dead. It is a moment of profound spiritual significance, a daily reminder of the cosmic cycles of life, death, and rebirth. You watch the colors deepen, the world transitioning from the realm of the sun to the realm of the moon and stars. A lone canoe glides past, its occupant paddling slowly, heading home. The splash of their paddle is a soft, rhythmic counterpoint to the growing stillness. From a neighboring house, you can hear the faint, melancholic notes of a clay flute, a simple, haunting melody played to accompany the dying of the light. The sharp, defined edges of the day begin to soften. The adobe houses across the canal lose their texture, becoming simple, dark shapes against the blazing sky. It is a time of peace, of profound beauty. For all the city's brutal realities, for all the demands of the gods and the strictures of the law, moments like this are a form of divine compensation. You look down the length of your chinampa. Your father's crops the maize stalks, the sprawling squash vines, the leafy bean plants are shrouded in the gentle twilight. This small patch of man-made land, floating in the middle of a lake, is a miracle of ingenuity. The fertility of the mud, constantly dredged from the bottom of the canals and enriched with organic waste, is legendary. It's a closed-loop, sustainable system of agriculture that is perfectly adapted to your environment. This is the source of your family's and your city's strength, and in the soft evening light, it seems less like a farm and more like a sacred garden. A mainstream historical fact is that the Chinampa system was so effective that it turned a high-altitude, marshy basin into one of the most productive agricultural zones in the ancient world. The first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. The bright speck of Venus, your culture's great star, is particularly brilliant. You know it as Quetzalcoatl in his celestial form, a potent symbol of death and rebirth. Its appearance signals the full arrival of night. You are taught to read the stars, not with the complex charts of a Karmakak priest, but with a farmer's practical knowledge. The position of certain constellations tells you when to plant and when to harvest. The sky is both a calendar and a sacred book. A fascinating and slightly fringed tidbit relates to the smell of the city at night. While many historical cities are described as being horribly smelly, contemporary accounts of Tenochtitlan often mention its cleanliness. With a system of public latrines built over the canals and a dedicated workforce that collected waste to be used as fertilizer, your city was, in many ways, far more sanitary than its European counterparts. So, as dusk settles, the air doesn't grow foul. Instead, it's filled with the clean, earthy scent of damp soil, the fragrance of night-blooming flowers planted on the chinampas, and the ubiquitous, comforting smell of wood smoke from 1,000 hearths. It's the scent of home. The great causeways that connect your island city to the mainland become ribbons of light for a time, as people with pine resin torches make their way home after a late day of trading or business. From your vantage point, they look like glowing serpents moving across the dark water. Soon, even these lights will extinguish, and the city will be given over to a profound darkness, a darkness unfamiliar to the brightly lit world of the future. The only light will be that of the moon and the brilliant spray of the Milky Way arching overhead. There's a deep tranquility in watching the city settle. The industrious, martial energy of the daytime gives way to a quiet, introspective calm. You feel a sense of profound belonging. You are a part of this landscape, as much as the water and the stone. Your ancestors chose this spot, guided by a divine prophecy, and through sheer force of will and brilliant engineering, they built this impossible city. They built it for you. Historians still marvel at the planning and labor required, debating the exact methods used to drive the thousands of wooden piles that form the foundations for the great temples and causeways in the soft lake bed. The last sliver of light vanishes from the sky. The world is now painted only in shades of black and silver. The flute player has fallen silent. It is time to go inside, to the warmth of the hearth, to the comfort of your family. The divine evening is over, and the deep, mysterious night has begun. You carry the image of the sunset with you, a memory of fire and water that will color your dreams. You retreat from the canal's edge, leaving the starlit darkness behind, and re-enter the single, warm room of your home. The world outside has fallen silent, but inside, this is the time for a different kind of life to begin. This is the time for stories. The hearth is now a bed of glowing, red gold embers, casting just enough light to see the familiar faces of your family gathered on their sleeping mats. This is the last, and perhaps most important, part of your day. Your society is one of an incredibly rich oral tradition. While the priests and nobles of the Karmakak have their sacred books of pictographs, the primary way that history, culture, and values are transmitted to common people like you is through spoken word, through recitation and song, passed down verbatim from one generation to the next. Your memory is a muscle, and it is exercised every single night. Forget binge watching a new show. This is your nightly entertainment, and you are both the audience and a living archive. Tonight, your grandfather is visiting. He is an elder of the Kalpuli, his face a beautiful map of wrinkles, each one a story in itself. As a respected elder, he is one of the designated storytellers, a living library of your people's lore. He sips from a small clay cup of pulkia privilege, as you know, granted to the elderly. The fermented agave drink loosens his tongue, and he claims helps him remember the old words more clearly. He begins his story not with "once upon a time," but with a formal, poetic invocation, his voice taking on a rhythmic, chanting quality. It's a cadence you have known since you were a baby, a sound as comforting as your mother's heartbeat. He is not just telling a story, he is performing a sacred duty. He recounts the epic of your people's origin, the story of how your ancestors, the Mexica, emerged from the mythical 7 caves at Chickamaustock and began their long, arduous migration from a distant northern homeland called Aztlan. You know this story by heart, yet you listen with rapt attention. You hear again how your patron god, Huitzilopochtli, spoke to your priest leaders, promising them a new home. You hear of the decades of wandering, the hardships, the battles with other tribes. You hear of the internal squabbles and the betrayals. His telling is filled with vivid details that bring the ancient past to life. A mainstream historical fact is that while Aztlan's existence is debated, the story of this migration is a core element of the Aztec identity, providing a powerful narrative of being a chosen people with a divine destiny. It justifies their conquests and their position as the rulers of the valley. As he speaks, he uses his hands, his posture, his tone to convey different characters and emotions. It is a masterful performance. Sometimes, he will pause and look directly at you, expecting you to recite the next line or a key verse of a song embedded in the narrative. This is how you learn. This call and response method ensures that the stories are transmitted with perfect accuracy. Any mistake is gently corrected. It's an oral final exam every single night. After the migration epic, the mood shifts. He might tell a different kind of story, one of the trickster tales. A more fringe and fun tidbit of your mythology is the character of Huhu-Coyotl, the old coyote. He is a god of music, dance, and mischief, a shape-shifting prankster whose exploits often serve as cautionary tales about foolishness, hubris, and the consequences of ignoring social norms. These stories are your culture's fables, teaching morality through humor and absurdity. You laugh as your grandfather recounts how Coyote, in an act of foolish pride, tried to outrun a falling rock, only to be crushed by it. The laughter in the small, firelit room is a warm and welcome sound. Then there are the poems. Aztec poetry, known as flower and song, is a high art form. Your grandfather might recite a short, poignant poem about the brevity of life, comparing humans to fleeting flowers that will one day wither, or a warrior's song, full of bravado and the grim beauty of battle. The language is highly metaphorical and deeply beautiful. We only came to sleep. We only came to dream. It is not true. It is not true that we came to live on the earth. We are like a new plant in the spring. Our bodies are green, and then they wither. This profound sense of transience, this belief that life on earth is an illusion, a dream from which we will one day awaken, is a powerful undercurrent in your philosophy. It's a surprisingly melancholy and introspective worldview for a people so often characterized simply as brutal warriors. Historians still argue how to reconcile this poetic sensitivity with the widespread practice of human sacrifice. Was the poetry a way to cope with the harsh realities? Or were both simply seen as different but equally valid ways of engaging with a mysterious and fleeting existence? The embers of the fire are now a very dull red. The storyteller's voice grows softer, slower. The last story of the night is often a local one, a tale about the founding of your specific Kalpuli or the exploits of a great warrior from your own lineage. It connects the grand, sweeping epics of the empire directly to you, to your family, to your small plot of land floating on a lake. It affirms your place in the great chain of being. Your eyelids are heavy now. The chanting voice, the warmth of the room, the fullness of your belly, it's a potent combination for sleep. The stories are not just entertainment. They are a kind of nightly meditation, a recentering of your mind and spirit, aligning you with the cosmos before you drift off. They are the final, essential nutrient of your day, feeding your soul as the corn and beans fed your body. The last story has been told. Your grandfather gives a final, soft blessing, wraps himself in his cloak, and quietly departs, his silhouette a brief, familiar shadow in the doorway before he is swallowed by the night. The embers in the hearth now offer almost no light at all, just a faint, breathing pulse of warmth in the center of the room. It is time for sleep. Your preparations are simple. There are no pajamas to change into. You will sleep in the same simple loincloth you have worn all day. You unroll your petlettle, the woven reed mat, onto the cool, packed earth floor. This is your bed. It's firm, much firmer than the soft mattresses of the future, but it's all you've ever known, and its familiar, slightly grassy smell is comforting. You might have a small, coarse cotton blanket to pull over yourself if the night grows particularly cold, especially during the winter months when the chill comes down from the high mountain peaks. Pillows are not common, but you might use a folded cloak or a small, smooth block of wood or stone if you were so inclined. A hard pillow might sound like a nightmare, but at least you'd never have to worry about flipping it over to find the cool side. The whole thing would be the cool side. Your family settles down around you. There is little privacy in a one-room home. You can hear the soft breathing of your parents and siblings, a quiet chorus that reinforces the sense of family, of security. Your house, made of sun-dried adobe bricks, is a good insulator. It holds the memory of the day's warmth long into the night while keeping out the damp chill that rises from the lake. The structure is simple but effective. A single rectangular room with a high, thatched roof of reeds and grass, sloped to shed the heavy summer rains. It's a design that has served your people for centuries. A fringe tidbit about Aztec sleeping arrangements is the use of steam baths, or temazcal. While not typically part of the main house, a temazcal was a common feature in a family compound. It was a small, domed structure, like a sweat lodge, where water was poured over heated volcanic rocks to produce a thick, purifying steam. While used for ritual cleansing and healing, many people would have taken a steam bath in the evening before sleep, a practice that would relax the muscles after a hard day's labor and induce a deep, peaceful drowsiness. It was the original home spa experience. As you lie on your mat, the sounds of the night filter in. The city is never completely silent. The deep, resonant croak of a bullfrog echoes across the canals. The high-pitched chirp of crickets is a constant, gentle pulse. Occasionally, you might hear the distant, lonely cry of a night bird or the faint splash of a fish jumping in the canal. These are the natural, soothing sounds of your water world, a far cry from the sirens and traffic that will dominate the nights of future cities. And then there is the silence of the gods. In the pitch-black darkness, with the heavens wheeling overhead, the presence of the spiritual world feels intensely close. You might say a small, silent prayer to Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror, the powerful, unpredictable god of the night sky, fate, and sorcery. You pray that he will watch over your sleep and protect you from any malevolent spirits that wander in the darkness. Superstition and belief are woven into the very fabric of your night. A nightmare is not just a bad dream. It can be seen as a malevolent omen, a visit from a dangerous deity from the underworld. Historians note that the Aztecs had a complex system of dream interpretation, with trained priests who could divine the meaning of one's nocturnal visions. A key historical fact about health and sleep is the Aztec understanding of medicine. Your society had a deep knowledge of herbal remedies. If you were having trouble sleeping, your mother might prepare a soothing infusion from the flowers of the passion fruit plant or other calming herbs. Aztec physicians, or Tizitl, were skilled healers who could set broken bones, perform basic surgery, and prescribe from a vast pharmacopoeia of local plants. While much of their practice was intertwined with magic and ritual, their practical knowledge of herbal medicine was extensive and effective. You close your eyes, your body sinking into the firm support of the mat. Your mind replays the day, the sharp crack of practiced swords at the Tenochtitlan, the vibrant chaos of the Tlatelolco market, the taste of the evening stew, the face of your grandfather illuminated by the fire as he spoke of ancient heroes. You feel a deep sense of contentment. Your world is one of order, purpose, and community. You know your place in the grand scheme of things. You are a small but essential part of the great floating city of Tenochtitlan, the heart of the empire, the center of the known world. The coolness from the earth floor seems to draw the weariness from your limbs. You are not just on the ground. You are connected to the very chinampa your family cultivates, the source of your life. The gentle, almost imperceptible motion of the man-made island, a subtle resonance with the waters of Lake Texcoco, lulls you. It's like being rocked in a continent-sized cradle. The last vestiges of thought dissolve into the darkness, and you fall into a deep, dreamless sleep. Another day of your extraordinary life in the Aztec floating city now complete. Your sleep is a deep and quiet harbor, a momentary blackness that refreshes the body and stills the mind. But in the cosmology of your people, sleep is more than just rest. It is a journey. It is a brief, nightly rehearsal for the final, great journey every soul must one day take. When you dream, your tenalion of the three parts of your soul, the one seated in your head that provides vigor and destiny, is believed to travel, leaving your body behind to venture into other realms. Tonight, you dream of Mictlan, the underworld. It is not a place of fire and punishment like the Christian hell. It is a neutral, shadowy realm, a 9-leveled kingdom of the dead, ruled by the stark, skeletal figures of Tenochtitlan, the lord of the dead, and his consort, Mictlantecuhtli. In your dream, you are not afraid. You are merely an observer, watching as souls begin their arduous, 4-year-long journey through the underworld. You see them cross a great river, carried on the back of a small brownish dog, a spiritual echo of the Exoloit your people raise. This is why a dog is often sacrificed and buried with its master. Without the guide, the soul would be trapped on the riverbank forever. You watch them pass between two mountains that threaten to crush them, and climb a mountain of obsidian where the razor-sharp stones slice at their ghostly forms. They endure winds that feel like being flayed with knives, and pass through a domain where arrows fly without number. It is a harrowing, obstacle-strewn path, a final great trial designed to strip the soul of all its earthly attachments. A key historical fact is that the Aztec conception of the afterlife was not determined by one's moral actions in life, but by the manner of one's death. This is a profound difference from many other religious systems. The vast majority of people, those who died of old age or common illness, were destined for this grueling journey to Mictlan. But there were other, more glorious destinations, warriors who died in battle or sacrificial victims whose hearts were offered to the sun were believed to join Huitzilopochtli himself. They would spend their afterlife as hummingbirds, flitting among the flowers in a sun-drenched paradise, accompanying the sun god on his daily journey across the sky. Women who died in childbirth, considered to be warriors in their own right, also had their own paradise, accompanying the sun from its zenith to its setting. And those who drowned or were struck by lightning went to Tlalocan, the watery, fertile paradise of the rain god Tlaloc, a place of endless springtime and abundance. Your afterlife was, quite literally, determined by your exit strategy. Your dream shifts. The shadowy plains of Mictlan dissolve, replaced by the familiar lapping of water. You are awake again. The dream fades like mist, but its residue remains, a quiet solemnity in your heart. You feel, as your culture has taught you, that sleep is a small death and waking is a small rebirth. You have returned from your nocturnal journey, your Tenali safely back in its vessel, ready to face a new day. This cyclical understanding of existence, day and night, life and death, creation and destruction, is the bedrock of your reality. You rise from your reed mat. The morning ritual begins anew. The sweeping, the fetching of water, the grinding of the corn. The rhythms of life in Tenochtitlan reassert themselves against the memory of the night's dark journey. A fringe belief, held by some scholars, is that this constant, close awareness of death did not make the Aztecs a morbid or depressed people. On the contrary, it may have infused their lives with a heightened sense of purpose and a profound appreciation for the fleeting beauty of the earthly world, as captured in their flower and song poetry. Life is precious precisely because it is so brief and because the journey that follows is so long and arduous. As you step out onto the Chinampa, the rising sun, your god Huitzilopochtli, once again emerges victorious from his battle in the underworld. He vanquishes the stars, his vanquished siblings, and bathes your floating city in the promise of a new day's warmth and light. You look towards the Templo Mayor in the distance, a silent acknowledgement of the great cosmic machine you are a part of. The cycle continues. You, your family, your Kalpuli, your magnificent city, you are all held in this perfect, delicate, and brutal balance. Your extraordinary life in this water world goes on, one sunrise at a time. You stand there for a moment, a citizen of the most remarkable city on earth, a city built on a dream, a city that floats on water and is sustained by the sun. The gentle, cool breeze from the lake carries the scent of damp earth and the promise of another day. And you are ready for it. The gentle lapping of the canals begins to slow its rhythm in your mind, the cadence of the paddles softening, the distant call of water birds fading into a peaceful hum. Your time in the great floating city is drawing to a close now, the vibrant colors of the marketplace and the imposing stone of the temples dissolving into the soft, quiet darkness behind your eyelids. There are no more duties to perform, no more histories to recite, only the profound and simple peace of the present moment. The cool, high-altitude air of the Valley of Mexico gives way to the familiar comforts of your own bed, the firm reed mat of Tenochtitlan, replaced by the gentle support of your mattress. The journey is over, and you can let the last echoes of that ancient world drift away like a canoe into the morning mist, leaving behind only stillness and the deep potential for rest. Allow your breathing to slow and your thoughts to cease their paddling, letting yourself simply float on the calm, quiet lake of sleep, secure in the knowledge that your own world is safe and still, and that all its adventures can wait until the morning.